Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to do a quick review of the Marlin Model 60 22 long rifle. If you like what you see, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, don't forget the bell, and please leave a comment below. Thanks for stopping by. Alright, here's my Marlin Model 60. And here is my Marlin Model 60. As you can see, I have two different versions of the Marlin Model 60. And we'll talk a little bit about the similarities, talk about the differences, and talk just a little bit about why they are different. And before we go any further, we'll do a safety check. You can see there's nothing inside the chamber, and there's nothing inside the chamber. Alright, the first thing you'll notice is that the buttstocks are different. This is an original model, and this is what we're going to call the newer model, and they're made out of different woods. Sorry, I don't remember what the woods are made out of, but you can pretty clearly see that the finishes are different. And then the newer model has the attachment on the bottom, and the original does not. And then it's the same thing on the front. The newer model has the attachment on the front, where the original does not. These designs were done afterward. These aren't factory designs, and it's the same on the front. Same on both sides. You can clearly see that they're shaped and configured exactly the same way. And this is the original model. You can see the trigger. Pretty basic. It's got the push button safety, and if I flip it over you can see the red indicator on the other side, and then you just push it through. And then one thing that you'll notice is there's 1, 2, 3 screws holding it together. And then here's the new model. The trigger guard's shaped the same way. It's got the same, see if I can't get it in the light, red indicator for the safety. And then I'm not sure if this is an aftermarket trigger or if it came like this from the factory. The trigger on the original, the one that I showed you first, that was an original trigger. This may be an aftermarket trigger, so I'm not 100% sure about that. And then you'll see on the bottom, this has 1, 2, 3, 4 screws holding it together. One of the safety features after they had to make the change was they had to add that third screw for stability. And then you'll also see it has a slide release, which right now doesn't work, but we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get up here talking about that. As you can see that the original model, you can see it's just slightly longer than the newer model. And then as I back up, you can see the two magazines. Neither one of the magazines are detachable, and that'll come into play here in just a little bit. But the newer model is considerably smaller than the original. The original holds 18. I'm not talking about putting one in the chamber. I'm just talking about the maximum amount of rounds that you can put down inside the magazine. And the newer one only holds 14. After the mid-80s and the federal assault weapons ban and the different state bans on assault weapons, the 10-round magazine for detachable magazines came into play. Well, since this is not a detachable magazine, that's why they could put 14 rounds in it. The original had 18, so that was before the ban, and after the ban, it got 14 because you can't take it off. And then both of them have your basic tube magazine. You can see the little handle inside there. You just push down on the handle, turn that a quarter turn, and slide it out. And you can see right down there is where you load it. Both of them have the exact same configuration. You know, the same little cutout so you can tell which way to put the bullet in. And once it's full, and you have this out, and I'll show you in just a second, you'll be able to see the last round sitting there. And there's no way to load another round, like you can't force it down. I mean, I guess you could force it down. I've never tried. But you'll be able to see a round right there sticking out past there. When they're both fully loaded, the top of the round is right about there at the bottom of the plunger. And then I'll go ahead and take that all the way out and show you. Both the plungers are exactly the same. It might not be called a plunger, but that's what I'm going to call it. They're both exactly the same. They work exactly the same. So there's no difference there. And then once you got it loaded, you just go ahead and push it back down in, and that sends all the rounds down and packs them in, and then you just lock it back into place and snap your bolt shut, and you're ready to go. As you can see, the front sights are exactly the same. This is the original model, this is the newer model, so this is the original model, and you can see the front sights are exactly the same. They both have the little screw which you can use to adjust or take it off. These next two parts I'm just going to show you on the original, because the new one's got a scope on it and it kind of hides the light, but it has a adjustable rear sight on both, and then it also has a scope rail on both. And if I can get in there pretty good and get it to focus, you can see there's not much to bite onto there. So my advice, if you have a Marlin Model 60 that has a tiny scope rail like this, make sure you put your scope on nice and tight and make sure it's secure, because you don't want to drop it. On the original model, when you'd fire your last round, the bolt will not lock open, and you'll see this only has one stage. It's either fully open or fully closed, and if you can see, there's a little arrow right there. In order to close it, you have to pull out a little bit on this tab and slide it forward, or let it snap shut. I know, like with my AR, if I don't let the bolt snap shut, then I'll have a malfunction. On this here, you can slide it forward and it'll still fire, but I always prefer to just let it snap shut. And then when you want to lock it back, you pull it back and push in right here in this position, and it'll lock open. And there's a real quick shot of it closed all the way. Here's the newer model, and here's another one of the differences. This has two different stages where the bolt can lock into position. I guess 3 if you're considering, all the way closed, one of the other positions. And then I'll demonstrate what that looks like for you. It's a little hard to do it with one hand, because this is the same. You can see the little arrow there. You have to pull in or pull out and push in on that lever to get it to lock into the different positions. So I'm going to show you here with the tape. Right there is what we'll call position number 1, and try to see where the tape is at, and I'll show you again. Here's position number 2. And you can see it's considerably further forward than it was from the, position number 1. You can see the gap right there in between the tape. That's one of the safety features. After you fired the last round, it's going to hold open like that, and then you can always slide it all the way back and to the next position. Now, back to the original one. I'll show you real quick if I can. If you see, it's all the way open, and when I let it go, it'll snap shut, and then you'll see on the newer model you can't do that. Right now it's starting in position number 2, and no matter which position you started in, it's going to stop. But one of the features that the new one has that the original does not is this little bolt release right here. And see if I can get them. Now, it only works if it's in position number 1, locked back here. This won't work. Now that it's in position number 2, if you depress this, you see the bolt snap shut. And obviously you can see I put a scope on the new one. Well, I didn't put a scope on the new one, but I have a scope on the new one and no scope on the old one. This one had a scope on it, but I took it off. This is my brother's rifle. This is my older brother's rifle. So this is just something that I'm going to keep, as a family heirloom. That's why I took the scope off of it. I don't fire it anymore. And this one I take out to the range just about once a month, just to make sure it's still centered and zeroed in. Well, there's my 2 Marlin Model 60s, and hopefully I showed a little bit about the similarities and the differences. And I'll leave down in the descriptions some of the laws that you can look up as to why they had to be different. But there you go. Hopefully you like what you saw. If you did, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, don't forget the bell, and please leave a comment below. Thanks for coming by. See you soon.